Oh, I think they're doing a great job. A lot of them are.
Good afternoon, Dwayne. How are you?
Not too bad, sir.
Ladies and gentlemen,
Radio Cayman's Talk Today with Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
But I do have some questions.
There are more questions than answers.
Radio Cayman's Talk Today. If you're ready to talk, we're willing to listen.
Well, I really enjoy this program today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
May God bless every person.
Hey, good afternoon to you. It's going to be another wonderful, wonderful Wednesday as we invite you to be a part of our discussion here on Talk Today. 949-8037 or 1-800-534-TALK. Hey, you want to know what's going to happen? Well, join us after the break. Stay tuned for Talk Today.
Radio Cayman's Talk Today, the Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program. We ask our listeners to avoid statements or comments which are abusive, derogatory, malicious, or defamatory. Do not use any indecent language or make any statement which is false or misleading. Email talktoday@candw.ky or call 1-800-534-8255.
Courtesy of Flow.
Cayman's #1 network that connects you to your world like never before.
Let your voice be heard. Once again, here's your host, Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon. Welcome back. 949-8037, 1-800-534-8255. And I love what I think is the perhaps most important thing about radio. It's the immediate, ability of an audience to be informed, to be engaged, to be included. And we're honored shortly. As many of you may have been following, the judgment has been handed down. It's Justice Tim Owen, QC, has issued a ruling in the judicial review challenge brought by Ms. Shirley Rolston, a member of CPR Cayman. And as you know, that was challenging the legality of the law enacted by the government to establish the process and procedure for the conduct of the referendum on the proposed cruise ship berthing facility. We'll tell you about that, and we'll have the excellent company of Ms. Shirley Rolston in person. So she was in court to receive the judgment, from Mr. Justice Owen, and she'll be in her studio seated momentarily. We have, as they say, eyes on her, and it's important, I think, for our national radio to be able to objectively, impartially share with our public the things that unfold that affect us as a public. It is equally refreshing to know that despite the differences we may harbor, despite sometimes the frustrations that we may sense, in that we're talking about people and not necessarily sometimes about processes, that we're talking amongst ourselves but not sufficiently publicly about things that potentially could impact us because they become precedent, maybe as a result of a court challenge. Think back to the elections challenges over the years. Is somebody eligible or not? Is a particular thing in sort of is it inconsistent with the elections legislation? Is this thing that? And so when we look at it, maybe it'll help to inform us. Now, think, for instance, our Constitution, 2009, we have some things under consideration that we have until tomorrow to sort of comment on. How many of us know about it? How many of us have seen it and have commented? Not just the name change that some thought is long overdue. Some thought, well, wait a minute, it's really not an important thing. Some say, well, it's even more significant. You're not going to call it a legislative assembly anymore. You're going to call it a parliament. Does that really have any bearing? If it is, what is it? Well, things like that are important. Are we sufficiently involved and informed and engaged and prepared to challenge, to champion? Well, Here is an opportunity to welcome to our studio, almost from the courtroom number 5 to the studios of Radio Cayman. We have the opportunity to welcome to our studio Miss Shirley Rolston. Those of us who know her in her daily life as an entrepreneur, doing her great service as an ambassador. She's usually less formally, attired, but today, like all of us, when we go to church or to court or to the town hall, we tend to, put on a little bit better garb. So, Miss Shirley Rolston, good afternoon to you, Mom.
Good afternoon, and good afternoon to all of your listening audience.
Thank you very much.
It's a great day.
And I appreciate, if I may say, you bring in your chauffeur.
Yes, my bodyguard.
Your bodyguard. I was going to say your confidant. No. A good friend, Mr. Mario Rankin, thanks again for joining us, sir.
No problem. And I just want to say thank you again for Radio Cayman for accommodating us on such short notice. And we are the gatekeepers of the Cayman Islands.
Well, I believe, at least it's my impression, that Radio Cayman will serve as that conduit with great respect. If this decision was this way and there were other people here, or this way, or if it was something else of importance, we would hope that we would be able to reach out and have the people present and willing to share.
Exactly.
So we appreciate being available, but if I can say, we appreciate you guys saying, okay, you know what, this is important. Let us come and tell the wider public what has transpired to date. I've looked at the ruling, the decision, but it just come down. I'm not going to preempt it. So let's pretend that I don't know exactly what happened and tell us. All right, Ms. Shirley?
Well, the judge found his ruling in favor of the people this time, and he found that the referendum law that I challenged was indeed unfair to the people. It blatantly did favor the government the way it was written, and it is not in line with what Section 70 of the Constitution provides for. And that is, this is the first people-initiated referendum, not just in the Cayman Islands, but in the whole Commonwealth. And it must set a precedent. It must be done correctly, because other territories are going to use this as an example. And we cannot have a referendum law that's just willy-nilly and does not do what it's supposed to do. We can't have a referendum law that has gaps and cracks and areas where the government can manipulate it the way they want. This ruling today provides that a framework law has to be made, and that will cover all future referendums. And of course, each referendum may have to have a tweak or two, but the framework will be there where this problem can never arise again. This unfair problem will never come up again, where the people have to scramble to get a judicial review to have a fair referendum.
Mr. Rankin.
Well, obviously, I express the sentiments of Judge Owens in terms of ensuring that if we're going to go down the road of a first ever process within the entire Commonwealth, that the law that governs that has to have the highest of integrity. And I think that the concerns in which CPR and all of the other members of the public had expressed with our legal opinion to the Cabinet Office prior to them debating the bill. Like Shirley just said, it's unfortunate that we had to go through a process of a judicial review in order for the government to understand the legitimate concerns that we expressed in that first legal opinion. Because had we had an opportunity to sit down to discuss those things and everybody was reasonable around that table, I think we could have avoided this process.
Definitely.
However, the merits of this process going forward is that now we understand that there is a governing body that sits neutral in terms of understanding both sides of the spectrum, because obviously the government had their legal team there to fight their position, and we had our legal team there that fought the position of the people. So I'm just happy that there was a neutral area where we had an overseas judge who sat on it, who had no political ties or biasness to this system. And I think that is a true demonstration of a high level of democracy where, it's very comforting to know that we have come from such a draconial way of being governed to now we have a section of the Constitution that we all chose to exercise, and now we sit here in this studio on probably one of the biggest turns in our history in terms of democracy, where now the people, there's no uncertain terms now, the people of these islands have a voice in Section 70, and we will be heard under Section 70. There will be no more slanderous remarks in the House of Parliament that says that we're just a bunch of overnight environmentalists, or we're political wannabes, or that we are Muppets or rascals. They could have all of the utterances they want under the protection of the Legislative Assembly, but they still have to face the facts that a law exists that protects those very same people in which they criticize.
Now, from the public's perspective, maybe at some point I'll share some of the initial comments that we're getting from people that, as I said to one fellow earlier, it was surprising, in a good way, that we're now starting to share some of these things, but I'm wondering if it's only because of the outcome. Had it been something else, would we be running cover? With that, I must say, there's a level of courage, Ms. Shirley, and people like you, for being willing to take a stand for what you believe is in the interest of democracy. With that in mind, what's next? Okay, Mr. Justice has issued a ruling, but then what does that mean? Okay, and then what's next?
Well, let me just say, I would never have gotten to court today if it had not been for a very beautiful chain of events. CPR started the movement 17 or 18 months ago. I became a part of that. We've had a lot of stumbling blocks thrown in our way along the way that would have discouraged many people. And I'm sure things like that have discouraged many movements before. We kept going. Obviously, CPR could not bring a challenge as a group, so one person had to do it. But I'm simply a voice for many.
Our beautiful national hero, Shirley Ralston, ladies and gentlemen.
I'm just a voice for many, many people. 6,000 people signed that petition. Only 5,288 needed to be verified.
Correct.
But 6,000 people, approximately 6,000 people signed that petition. Those are obviously a big part of this process. There were many that could not sign the petition, civil servants who were intimidated for various reasons and felt like they could not risk their livelihoods by signing a petition. So we also could not find any legal representation. And eventually we did find what I consider to be the best legal team that could have ever been put together for this cause.
Here.
And then we've had the donations, because of course I could not afford to take this challenge on my own financially. I could not take that challenge up. There was absolutely no way I could even consider it. But I did have faith that we would get the donations needed to get us. And so to get to this spot, it has taken a lot of the right pieces falling into place, people being involved, people wanting to help, people wanting to participate. And I think that movement is just going to grow because we are no longer in our little coma where we just let things happen and trust the outcome. Those days are gone. This is the day of a new awakening. People now realize that they do have power in their hands in the form of a vote. And I think the movement is just going to keep going. With the judgment, we're not sure if the government will appeal. If they do, then we will still be in the fight.
All the way to the end.
Yeah. That's not going to intimidate us. If we have to fundraise again and make more funds, I'm sure that we will accomplish that. I've had faith in the Lord above from day one. He has given me a positive outlook, and He has put so many things in my place that could never have happened without His hand in it, and I'm grateful for that. I would just like to encourage every single Caymanian out there to get up to scratch on what has happened so far, so that they can have a mind of their own about their how they fall into the line of politics. We need every Caymanian to register to vote. It's one of the most important things that you can do in your life, is to register to vote. Without a vote, you have no voice. And I'm tired of hearing the excuses that your vote don't count, don't want to be on jury duty. Yeah. Come on, people. Let's wake up. Let's stand together, and let's bring back participatory democracy the way our forefathers intended for it to be, and let's make them and ourselves proud that we are taking on the mantle and doing what our government is supposed to do.
100% agree, Charlie. And one of the most interesting things that I am now sitting waiting to see is if the government is going to really appeal a decision that is obviously echoing through the halls of not our parliament and our constituencies and our electorate, but also across the pond. So when you have a judge of that magnitude sits and make a ruling based on his findings, clearly indicates that there was something wrong with the current form of the referendum bill, in which was debated and passed in our House of Parliament, right? So it'll be interesting to see whether or not the government will appeal the mandate of the people, because they've been fighting the people for 20 months. And now that not only the people of the island concerns are now being shared, they'll also been solidified through a judicial process. So it'll be interesting on this election cycle, which is the last leg of this term, whether or not the government will insist on fighting the people with an appeal on a ruling that clearly outlined the importance of the integrity of this process. So again, we encourage every single person who's eligible to register to vote in this country, by age or by status or by citizenship or by whatever. We encourage you all to go out, get registered to vote. So therefore, when this process is finalized and we have to go and vote on this particular issue, that we can come out in the numbers that are needed in order to get us across the finish line. So we encourage everybody to be a part of it. Jury duty is a civic duty. That is a small price to pay for free schools and good roads and good infrastructure.
Very small price to pay.
A very small price.
All right. Well, when we come back from the break, please tell us more. Could we maybe invite some historical context? Perhaps you could expand a little further, if only to the extent of their unfolding procedures within the court. We know the outcome. We know potentially there could be an appeal, but a little bit more, and then maybe chat, just so that we can see democracy at work. All right, the phone lines are open if you want to call and share a thought. If you just want to listen and learn and be informed, hey, we offer it up to you. So stay tuned for Talk Today.
Marianne Radmacher once said, "As we work to create light for others, we naturally light our own way."
Calling all CICSA members. The Cayman Islands Civil Service Association annual general meeting for the Sister Islands is Thursday, February 20th in Cayman Brac at the District Administration Building in Stake Bay in the conference room located on the second floor starting at 12:15 p.m. A light lunch will be provided.
Come out and vote for your two BRAC representatives who will serve on the 2020 Management Council. Hear the President give his annual report, ask your questions, share your ideas, and make suggestions. You can also email your questions in advance of the meeting to cicsa@gov.ky. There will also be a door prize raffle of a Cayman Airways voucher, and the first 35 persons to sign in at the meeting will get a free gift.
Members, please make every effort to attend this very important CICSA annual general meeting for the Sister Islands on the BRAC Thursday, February 20th at the District Administration Building in Stake Bay in the conference room located on the second floor starting at 12:15 p.m.
Red Sky at Night. Terrific live music, actors, dancers, comedians, and poets. Over 100 artists and artisans selling paintings, crafts, jewelry, and accessories, as well as delicious local food. Red Sky at Night at the Harquail Cultural Center. Saturday, February 29th, 4 p.m. to midnight. Don't miss out. Tickets on sale now at eventpro.ky. A CNCF production. Sponsored by Hurley's Media, Pepsi, Caribbean Airlines, and Radio Cayman. Preventing dengue is as simple as preventing mosquito bites. Use a mosquito repellent, wear protective clothing, and stay indoors during early dawn and dusk when mosquitoes are most active. Control the places around you where mosquitoes breed. Remove stagnant water in outdoor and household settings. As a weekly habit, persons should change the water in vases, clear the water in saucers under potted plants, and ensure air conditioner drip trays are free of stagnant water. Outdoor objects capable of holding water should be kept empty and preferably disposed of or put into dry storage if not used. These include open bottles and tins, watering cans, buckets, empty paint tins, and old vehicle tires. Do your part to control the spread of dengue. The dengue virus is an infectious disease transmitted through mosquito bites. Symptoms may come on as early as 4 days or as late as 3 weeks following an infection. There is no vaccine or specific medication to treat dengue. Symptoms of dengue include high fever, headache, pain behind the eyes, joint and muscle pain, and rash. If persons have any of these symptoms, they should go to the nearest health center or hospital. It is advised to drink lots of liquids and avoid medication that contains aspirin.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Good afternoon, welcome back. Thank you for joining us, and again, thanks equally to Miss Shirley Rolston and Mr. Mario Rankin. And I say it from this perspective, if it's unfair to you or if it's interpreted properly, people guide me. I believe that in order for a democracy, which I think we have a healthy democracy, if we go back to our history and we see how our people organize, if we understand even the written record, but even those of us who've had parents and grandparents who can tell us about things that were happening, even today, in the 1800s, the late 1800s, we see our old history, but we also see a tenacity and a resolve in our people, right?
You know, funny. We talk about the historical upbringing of our democracy because, like you said, if you look in the late 1800s, before we were ordered to be ruled under Jamaica, the Cayman Islands was left pretty much unchecked. So when they finally realized that we already had proper structure and governance within our communities, it demonstrated the ability of Caymanians in order to cultivate an attitude that was in the best interest of all Caymanians. And when they saw that level of skill sets for being organized and governed, Great Britain then suggested that we come under the rule of thumb of the then governor of Jamaica. And it was only until they saw how organized and how resilient we were as a people, with very little support from the outside territories, they then understood that if that level of mindset had continued, I would venture to say that Cayman would have never been afraid of the almighty word independence, because we had already demonstrated a level of independence. And then when Mr. Ormond Panton went to Lancaster House, some 100 years later, again, because Cayman didn't have a large enough resource pool in order to contribute on any great level as other countries to the Federation, he then asked for a 5-year term of self-internal governance. So people must understand the history that Bustamante lost the election to Manley because of Ormond Panton's tenacity to get up in the floor of representatives at Lancaster House and say, look, the Cayman Islands is a small jurisdiction. We cannot contribute on the levels of every other jurisdiction. So therefore, we want self-internal governance as a trial, and we'll pay for border protections. Manley then convinced Bustamante to ask for the same thing. When Bustamante agreed, and I just go into a small short history so we can understand how we get here today.
Exactly.
So when Manley went back to Jamaica, he convinced the Jamaican people that Bustamante were trying to make Jamaica go independent. So the election was that same year. Bustamante lost, Manley took over, and then went independent. Cayman Islands then moved away from under the rule because Jamaica is no longer a colony. So Cayman no longer spends Jamaican money or rule under Jamaican governor. Then they had to set in a whole new set of regulations and rules and terms and for us to abide by. So at the end of the day, when you see this evolution of democracy in the Cayman Islands and the people, because if you do an ancestry DNA on Shirley or even myself and many other people, you will find that we are tied to the hip of those people from the 1800s who had the ability. So yes, where history has forgotten about us for a few generations, well, we are back at that position. So I heard we got some callers. And
let's do it. And at some point, I'll just say something that, but a history. Yeah. Mario Rankin and what did you call her? Our next national hero?
No, I'm Miss Shirley.
Miss Shirley. Rascal. Oh, yo. All right, let's go to the phones. Hey, good afternoon and welcome. Thank you for calling. Good afternoon.
Hello?
Hi, good afternoon, sir.
Oh, I didn't hear the beep.
Okay, hold on. Beep. I'm sorry.
Well, I'm calling with a hip hip.
Hip hip. Okay. Well, I just listened.
I was one of those that voted no. Mm-hmm. Either way, I guess not in the referendum, but just as an individual, and that matters. It matters that we can say yes and say no, whereas we reflect on the 1800s and where my people came from had no voice at that particular time. And so I'm very appreciative that I can be in 2020 and have Mario and Miss Ralston advocating for the people and actually seeing something manifest. And really the point of all of this was we want to be heard. The people need to be heard, and exactly. there are mechanisms in place that we can do that. And what's happening now in Cayman is we're finally realizing our voice. I am, and again, I just want to say hip hip, hooray!
Mm-hmm. All right, well, thank you very much, and feel invited to call and share your thoughts at each and every occasion that we hear. So, looking at a couple of comments on our electronic messaging system. Maybe I should call it that these days. But with that, though, when we look at the history, like the caller shared, Mr. Rankin, like you were, there is this resilience and this resolve. If he doesn't mind me sort of using him as an example, if we look to the Honourable Speaker of the House as Premier when he challenged sort of the EU with respect to the financial services, there was some probably in a very disrespectful, derogatory tone looked at him and said, well, who he is think he can take all these big boys? But it was to the benefit of the country, right? And that tenacity, that resolve probably harkens back to centuries ago of that DNA you speak. Now, when we look at the historical context, right now, if we're not mindful, we'll probably repeat and say things that are not, how do you say, as representative and respectful of the resolve that our ancestors had. Jamaica was British Jamaica, so was British Honduras, which was the British Cayman Islands. Mm-hmm. The British Empire was great and mighty. For political and economic and administrative convenience, we were administered through the big island that allowed it easy and more convenient, expedient for that to happen, right? Mm-hmm. But that resolve in our people, we saw it after Hurricane Ivan. All of us here, whether we go back generations or whether we were here for just a few decades, we say, let's get our island back together. I asked that in this context then. With this ruling from Mr. Justice Owen QC and with the political sort of climate globally, but specifically here, is this now encouraging, not just as a precedent, but as a way to say we can strengthen our democracy, a government now of the people, for the people, to serve the interests of the people? Ms. Shirley, you were humble and a great humility in saying I was just but one to help to because of the process, But what does that mean for future generations? I mean, it must be historic.
Well, our duty is to be an example for the next generation. Mm-hmm. If we just sat back and did nothing, the next generation that's going to come up is going to say the same thing we did. The generation before us didn't really do much. So for years, Caymanians have been losing hope. myself included,
Mm-hmm.
because everything has been slipping away, or it becomes a fight to try to retain it. And there are things that are ours, rightfully ours, that we should not have to fight for, and that's a voice in this country.
Wow.
So the young people are also rising up. It's
Yes.
kind of simultaneous with the movement that we started, which is a beautiful thing. And so they're looking up to us and expecting good from us,
Mhm.
and expecting to learn from us.
And that's the real victory.
And that is that people have hope, and that people
Mhm.
are finding their voice, and they have an avenue to express that voice. That is a win for me.
Yeah.
Okay.
You know, and to Shirley's point, and I can tell you, if we have a call,
Yes, sir.
by all means. But I'd just like to state that prior to the 2009 reform of the Constitution,
Mhm.
the people were exhausted with the idea that they couldn't do anything because they didn't have anything to stand on, like Section 70. So again, the real victory here is that we've inspired Generation Next, because as Generation Now, we're responsible for Generation Next. But let's take the callers.
Well, hey, Mr. Rankin, host the show.
Hey, I just love to hear everybody.
Yes, we want to hear from the public.
Mario Rankin, I'm having fun with you guys, and Miss Shirley Ralston. Hey, good afternoon and welcome. Thanks for calling.
Hello.
Hi, good afternoon, ma'am. How are
Good
you?
afternoon. I'm very, very happy, blessed, and everywhere. Thankful to hear your ruling. Praise God from people standing strong. I'm glad that they decided to wake up, because I thought we were going to lose them all, but they were all sleeping. But they look like they must have come out of their graves. Thank you all, Mario and Miss Shirley, for standing for us, and the rest of the group that are there that are standing strong. We are behind you, and we will be going forward. We need to stand for something, or we're going to fall for everything.
You got that right. Thank you for the support.
Well, thank you very much. And looking at a message here, in the studio, the phone lines are open, 949-8037, 949-8037. Or if you wish, you can also use toll-free 1-800, that's 1-800-534-8255, and then, of course, WhatsApp. Quick message, not quite sure. I read it twice, and I think I'm missing a word. But the person in comment and saying, well, okay, now, I'll read it again during the break and see if I missed it. My inference from the message is that, okay, everybody can come out of the woodwork now and jump on the bandwagon, being unwilling to stand in the front. I read it and I recognize that I'm interpreting and putting my stamp on it. And that, back to the courage and the convictions of those to say, listen, we think this is right, so we're going to do this thing. Is this now because we are very much aware of at least the perception that if you take a stand and you're unwilling to go the distance, or you're unable to sustain the fight, then there can be consequences, so you better have that resolve in you. So why risk it? Is this now because of this potential victory and what it could mean for generations to come? A people in a democracy must stand. If not, the only people to fear would be those in power with guns and the like. Will we see the people united now?
Yeah. You know, I would just like to say this, because I think it's important that we also express that this process is not to be adversarial towards any government.
Right.
It is to clearly stick a marker in the sand that says, look, where we elect you and we do trust your better judgment, but when the time comes, when something is questionable by the very same people, then at least now you will have in the back of your mind that this process has taken place, and that when that level of people turns that volume up to those decimals, then you understand that you need to have that conversation, like we've expressed through this entire process. 8 emails, 8 requests, all sorts of efforts on our part to try to have open dialogue with our government, which were all fell on deaf ears, which led us to this point. So when you look at historical movements in the last 20 months of this process, right up to Shirley's challenge, it was all as a result of not being taken into consideration, knowing very well that this process had garnished enough support from the public, where we could have justified our judicial review based on the legal opinion that we had put forward prior to the judicial review. So understand that this process is not to be defiant of any government. It is so that it can hold all governments accountable, and so that the people of these islands forever can now have a voice and stand on firm ground that this is the foundation of.
Mm-hmm.
So at the end of the day, it's we need to have an opportunity to have the people to have a voice in the halls of Parliament.
All right. Let's pause quickly, take a short break. We'll come back with continued discussion. The phone lines are open. You can also WhatsApp 925-3261. We invite you to be a part of our democracy. Stay tuned for Talk Today.
2020 means perfect vision. And if you have your sights set on driving a new hybrid, then the time is now to check out the new RAV4 and CHR. Hold up. Just two of the many hybrid models that VAMT is bringing to Cayman. Whether you're looking for a smoother and quieter way of driving or want a car that maximizes fuel efficiency while minimizing emissions, there are lots of ways a new hybrid from VAMT can make the difference in your life. Hybrids save fuel, run cleaner, reduce CO2 emissions, and even recharge their batteries without being plugged in. So focus your 2020 vision on a new hybrid from VAMT Motors, and we will see you through. Come to VAMT, home of the hybrid, located on Walkers Road.
Hi, I am Dr. Lee, Chief Medical Officer in the Ministry of Health. The Ministry and the Department of Public Health, along with our partners, are working hard to help protect residents from the novel coronavirus. Did you know that following travel advisories is especially helpful in controlling infections? So, avoid travel if you have a cough, flu-like symptoms, and a fever. It's also important to practice general infection prevention measures at all times. That means frequently wash your hands and avoid close contact with people suffering with acute respiratory symptoms. To read more about the Public Health's travel advisory and other updates, please visit hsa.ky.
This February at Beyond Basics Medical Day Spa, enjoy skin-sational savings on your favorite spa services. Buy up to 2 of any of the following spa services for just $99 each. Laser hair removal to get rid of unwanted hair. Dermaplaning to smooth and brighten skin. Hydrofacials to treat acne, pigmentation, and dehydrated skin. Or cellulite and fat reduction in those stubborn areas. That's up to 2 services at Beyond Basics for just $99 each. Offer valid until February 29th. And services must be used by April 30th. Call Beyond Basics Medical Day Spa at 925-SKIN or visit Beyond Basics Spa on Instagram and Facebook for details.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners' participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon. Welcome back to Talk Today. Thanks for joining us in the studio, Ms. Shirley Rolson, Mr. Mario Rankin. And we're talking about the ruling, well, that's hours ago now, from Mr. Justice Tim Owen, QC, for those who are joining us. So he has issued a ruling that now says we're in favor of the people, and now the government has to decide what the government's going to do.
Yeah.
Does that mean then that is there going to be a referendum? And if there is, how would that move about? What does it mean?
There will be a referendum, but not until a proper
law is written.
Framework.
Law
is written for referendums, and that will be a general framework law that applies to every referendum in the future. I'm not sure how quickly that can be drafted or whatever. The important thing is that it must be done correctly. So it was rushed before.
Yeah.
It was done unfairly. It was done to where the people would not get what the referendum was intended to get.
Okay.
And so the government has to draft a proper framework legislation for referendums according to Section 70 of the Constitution. And when that happens, then it has to go through the process again of being debated in the House.
That's right.
There has to be a period of consultation. We don't know how long that will take. The government could appeal this decision. That would drag things on again. So.
And remember, during the last referendum bill debate, remember the Attorney General stepped away from it and let Cabinet make cabinet decide what that referendum law would look like. So I think that was the first indicator that something fundamentally was wrong when your Attorney General steps away from a process that is supposed to have the highest level of integrity, which governs a process that has never been done in the Commonwealth. Because when we look at this particular process, Sterling, this is not just only for the Cayman Islands. All other jurisdictions that rule under the UK will now have an example in terms of what that framework would look like. So for me, for it to be well-rounded, I think that it should be a well-thought-out process where they invite other jurisdictions to be a part of the process, so that this referendum law and bill and framework is absolutely airtight, and that it represents both sides of the legal fraternity and the people of the Cayman Islands. Because at the end of the day, like Shirley said, when it was being debated, everybody knew that it was being done in a process because there was a project in which triggered this process, a project that was laying in the balance to whether or not it's going to move forward. So we knew clearly where the government stood, and that was in the best interest of the cruise lines to get this project off the ground. So therefore, we saw them expediting and rushing this particular bill so that they can get on with that process. Now, for any government who would have disregarded the importance of the integrity of a framework for referendum simply because they're trying to accommodate cruise industries to get a pair because of whatever promises they may have made in the past, in the absence of this bill or in the absence of the thought process that we would have formed a people-initiated referendum, it is absolutely unheard of. And I would use a word that I never use in my entire life. It was absurd for them to think that they could have done that process only in the best interest of building a cruise berthing facility for the two of the largest cruise ships in the world who have $1 billion portfolio. So again, we must not forget why we're here, as well as we should also remember that moving forward on this particular issue, that it has to have the highest level of integrity. So I support Judge Owen's ruling in terms of getting that framework right the first time.
So then let me ask then, for those who were not present in court, sometimes, from what I understand from those who attend court regularly, the lawyers for one side would say, give an indication to the sitting judge, well, we intend to appeal, whichever. Has the lawyers for the government side give any sort of indication as to what they will do, or they can say?
There was a bit of a problem because the court ruling today was done via video link. And unfortunately, the microphones in the courtroom for our side did not work properly. And Justice Owen could not get everything that the government lawyer and the National Trust lawyer were saying. So he has asked for them to make their submissions in writing versus orally. And I think the government lawyer has to have his by Monday,
4 o'clock.
4 o'clock UK time on Monday, and the same for the National Trust lawyer.
Okay. Now, as you were sharing, this then becomes potentially not just for this referendum, but future referenda, the framework, the process, so that maybe the citizenry, the electorate would decide to ask for a referendum on health, education, on infrastructure. The intent of this ruling is that it should govern what the process of a referendum should look like.
Yes, the framework would be there for the petition, for the verification, for everything. Now, yes, for each individual referendum, things would have to be added that are specific to that
cause.
But the basic framework would be in place.
Absolutely.
And it's no gaps for manipulation.
Okay.
And that's how, and what she just laid out, how could that be unreasonable for anybody to digest, especially elected officials? So if we're saying, hey, we want to see a proper framework and bill and law for referendum, and these are the things we think it should be covering, how could you disagree with that? So again,
So you understand the process? It's maybe a simple example, but it's like if you go into to watch a play at a theater or something, you stand in line, you buy a ticket, you present the ticket to the person at the concession, and you go in and you get your assigned seat, or you do it online, but there's a so you want to understand the process so that when you go there,
and I believe firmly that some of the utterances by the premier publicly to the media and to print media, when he said that had he known before this petition had launched, he would have set guidelines and had a law that would have prevented us from meeting some of the thresholds. Like he would have had a cutoff date for collecting signatures. He would have done things within the bill that would have prevented it. I think that worked against him, because when you have this case, a judicial review that's questioning that very process that you passed, then these things come up and it creates certain hindrances for the government. So
okay. Yeah. Well, let's pause and we got a news break. When we come back, share with us, because as you sharing, this is historic in that sense. There's still some things to be determined. We appreciate the opportunity now to hear what the court has shared. Now we can talk about it. All right, let's pause and take a break. The phone lines remain open. Ms. Shirley, Mr. Arroyo, stay with us. So stay tuned for Talk Today.
Today's biggest news.
Radio Cayman.
It's only 2 species that we have here on the island.
Generations present.
Your voice, your choice.
For today's biggest news. Access to information.
Local, regional, international, this is headlines from Radio Cayman's newsroom team.
Today's biggest news.
A warning from the RCIPS on a hoax message circulating through WhatsApp of individuals purporting to be officials from the Department of Home Affairs in order to gain access to homes and commit robberies. Police say they have received no reports of any such incidents and are urging everyone to refrain from further circulating the fraudulent warning. The same message was circulated via WhatsApp in October of 2019, and police confirmed that was also a hoax that had originated internationally. Good afternoon, I'm Dion Anglin with your headlines and news elsewhere. Hundreds of passengers who tested negative for the new coronavirus have begun leaving a quarantined cruise ship in Japan amid heavy criticism over the country's handling of the outbreak. One Japanese health expert who visited the Diamond Princess at the port in Yokohama said the situation on board was completely chaotic. U.S. officials said moves to contain the virus may not have been sufficient. And Boeing's crisis-hit 737 MAX jetliner faces a new potential safety issue as debris has been found in the fuel tanks of several new planes which were in storage awaiting delivery to airlines. The head of Boeing's 737 program has told employees that the discovery was absolutely unacceptable. A Boeing spokesman said the company did not see the issue further delaying the jet's return to service. It comes as the 737 MAX remains grounded after 2 fatal crashes. And that's a wrap of your headlines. I'm Dion Anglin.
Stay in touch with Radio Cayman for the latest in news and information.
Follow Radio Cayman on social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Download the Radio Cayman app or log on to our website, www.radiocayman.gov.ky.
Radio Cayman, your voice, your choice, your radio.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners' participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon. Welcome back to Talk Today. In the studio, Ms. Shirley Rolston and Mr. Mario Rankin. And I won't try to joke and jest. And I think this is significant and a serious issue, as President said. If I wasn't so, I would say, they were called rascals, but I won't do that. I won't do that. I'll be serious for a second. For those who are listening, please join the discussion. You can decide, I don't know, so ask a question. You can decide, I don't agree, and you can take, the perspective that you wish. It's a democracy. Phone lines are open, 949-8037, or toll free at compliments of flow at 1-800-534-8255. I'll read a WhatsApp. I'll read it as it's written. And our WhatsApp is 925-3261. Is that the right number, Ms. Susan? 925-3261. If it's wrong, she said that's the right number. Says, we'd be grateful if you kind of read this for me. Please congratulate these 2 stalwarts in your studio for me, please. It's no coincidence that on the day after government got the islands on the blacklist, that the people of these islands are comforted with the fact that this unruly government is again shown up in the public as being incompetent. Signed, a staunch supporter behind the scenes. I should almost take back my earlier comment when I read that email that was asking about, now that we get to this point, will people jump on the bandwagon, right? I wasn't trying to infer that thing about it, but I asked that and wondering sometimes, do we need people to go before us, sort of the forward team, to take the licks to pave the way. The first under the barbed wire gets the scrapes.
We want people to jump on the bandwagon.
We don't mind them jumping
We want people to jump on the bandwagon. We need people to jump on the bandwagon.
That's why this process was fought all the way through the end, because it now I wouldn't consider it bandwagon. I would consider it converting.
Okay.
And giving people encouragement and inspiring. So for those who were still questioning that we would have this process rule in our favor and that the people will actually be heard, now they have a reason to come on board, because now they see that it's a real true movement.
Well, with all due respect, I mean, when this petition for a referendum started, there were a lot of people that had no clue what a referendum was or what they needed to do or what their part was to play in it. And they didn't really understand. I think if we did the same thing and started a petition right now, we would get probably 6,000 signatures in a week, because people are more informed, more educated. They understand that how important it is to play a part in making the changes that we need. And so I commend people for wanting to be a part of this movement. I welcome them. Please, we all need to stick together, or as that caller said, if we don't stand together, we will fall together, and that is a fact.
Yeah. And I read it as it was written, not only to be respectful of the person taking time to write, it doesn't matter who the person is, right? The fact that you sensing, but equally because of the choice of language, hopefully it shows in us a growing courage amongst our people to, I agree, no, I don't agree, and we're going to get involved in a healthy, civilized debate publicly if necessary. We look at our young people, whether it's on the environmental issue, single-use, plastic, for instance, or protection of environmentally sensitive areas. They're probably seeing, wait a minute, what has been happening globally, what has happened here over the generations with respect to development and lost areas, and wait a minute, we just paved this thing, so we can't unpave it. Even if we rip it up, we're going to destroy it. So with them, Mr. Rankin, you always talk about the generation now responsible for Generation X. They're showing a sense of unity. They're showing a sense of passion, but they're also showing a sense of, can I say, action? And maybe we work hand in hand.
Absolutely.
All right. So
the other thing I'd just like to say, I mean, when people like Mario and Michelle and Katrina and Johan and the various ones of us have made a stand and have stuck together to try to see this thing through, we get criticized because we're doing it because of political aspirations. Please, people, get that out of your heads. Exactly. When people do something to try to further the betterment of everybody, whether it's because they may consider running for elections or not, is irrelevant. What you should look at is the goal that they're trying to achieve.
Contents.
And you either want to be a part of it or you want to tear them down. But when people stand up to take a stand on your behalf, don't use it as a tool to cut them down about it's only because of their political aspirations. I can tell you right now, I did not get into this because of any political aspirations. I got into this because I care for my country. I care for the people of this country, and that is my focus.
Yeah, Sterling, I it's unfortunate that some of our people choose to tear down those who are genuinely in the best interest of the people of the Cayman Islands and the Cayman Islands. I've had people call me many names. Oh, he's an environmentalist now and want to build an oil refinery in the North Sound. I've never proposed to build an oil refinery in the North Sound. That's number one and foremost. I have people call me all sorts of names in public, privately, most recently. I mean, I've been called all sorts of derogatory names, and that's fine, because if people haven't seen my maturity, the growth that I've had over the last couple of years, then that's on them, because the same way they can criticize me for being a public speaker or an advocate for something that's in the best interest of Cayman, they would have equally seen my responses to certain negativity that has been levied at my feet, which I've not said anything. I've kept it to where it's supposed to be. And the reason for that is, and I'll say this right now, without any fail of prosecution, I only do it because I value the opinion of my children. One is 18, one will be 16 in June. So whatever I do publicly is to make sure that their opinion of me is at the highest level. So therefore, when you hear me speak, I speak passionately because I care about the future of my children and every other person's child in this country and their grandchildren. So like Shirley said, don't pay attention to who's delivering the message. Listen to the contents of the message, because it's hard for me to believe that we're fighting for something that equally benefits them, but yet they are our biggest critics.
Right.
We need to strip away the emotional attachment we have to persons and look at the continuity of the issue and the fundamental things that affect us, whether it be positive or negative, and we move forward. We're not going to always agree on everything, and we will never agree on everything. But at the end of the day, if I'm fighting to save a beach, or if I'm fighting to save Georgetown Harbor, I don't live on the beach and I don't live in the harbor. So I must be fighting for everybody. So at the end of the day, today is a very emotional time for me because having been told for 20 months that no matter what you do, they're gonna still do what they want, and that you're gonna fail at doing this. This is a day that we can now hold our heads really high and understand that look, this could actually be done. It has been done.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'll share with you, and I was grateful for the attorney. I don't think I misunderstood, and I don't think I'm misspeaking. He had shared long ago, and then again, sort of yesterday, when I asked the question, he said, processes like this, one should encourage a populace that if it's a democracy, then you have a right and a voice, and there's a level of protection. And if the court makes a ruling that the court gets right in terms of popular opinion, then it's sort of an affirmation of the justice system, and us being able to look at it and say, what, that's why we have this healthy judiciary. We all know that at times there is a case in court. It could be a criminal case, it could be something else, and we go, but how could that judge come down with that? And we say things that are from an emotive, in ill-informed perspective, because he only got 50 years. You should have given him 50,000 life sentences, because that's what we don't understand it, right? Now, he was sharing this, that if the courts rule in a certain way on a certain thing that is in accord with, what is perceived to be in the best interest of a society then and in the future, it's akin, I hope what I understood what he's saying, to a parliament passing laws to reflect and represent the people on a particular thing to preserve what is then sort of the moral and spiritual and societal ethos. And I thought, even lawyers can get deep. But is this what we're looking at? That this thing now affects us? It potentially could impact the other sort of British territories in terms of how they frame and approach referendum and the like. Is that really that important? I mean, or is it just for us?
They've had their eyes on us for this whole process.
Wow.
The overseas territories have been watching very carefully, because they may have the same issues, and they will have guidelines. Somebody's already paving the way, that they don't have to go through the same long process that we have gone through. They can start out on the right foot.
Okay. Yeah. I was looking at a message that came through and debating, only because the person says, use it if you want, but don't use this part. And I understand the person's sort of context. But reading it again just then as you were talking and looking at it, and the notion that we always talk about things being politically perceived and motivated. So you only doing that because, boy, you get mileage for this. Not you necessarily. Mm-hmm. But this person says, there are no organized sort of civic groups. The business associations and the professional associations have their thing. But there are no trade unions. There are no other sort of organized civic entities from which traditionally, even in this part of the world, that you sort of get the breeding ground for the potential aspirants of politicians who are looking, right? Civil service is probably the closest thing. The person did a tally of, in the last 4 elections, I think it's 4, I hope I didn't miss a number, how many people were either former civil servants who were elected.
Right.
And it's probably a high percentage. Yeah. But it's just a thought process. Anyway.
Well, I think that's interesting because our harvest pool is coming from former civil servants. And that's not necessarily a bad thing.
No.
Because they've been in the system. They've seen how certain ministries have its issues, and they might have something to contribute that is positive. But until we have a comprehensive panel and committees and institutions that understand what our social development issues are, like we know that some schools right now have a thing called a food bank. And in our island, we have something that calls a food bank. That where some kids that are fortunate bring in extra food to put in a cupboard so that the other kids who are not so fortunate can have some place to get food from. In our schools in the Cayman Islands that boast one of the best economies in the world, who have the 5th largest financial section in the world, who have one of the best tourism industries in the world, and who have more people on work permit than actual people. We have children feeding children. That is unacceptable. Now, I'm not saying that we should discredit the brave young kids who have identified that their companions are not so fortunate. I applaud that, and we would like to build on that. But when we have a society such as ours, where the simple fundamental things like that is not being addressed, then we should understand that when we fight an issue like this, that it's going to be fight on the highest level of resistance. You understand? Because if 3 of us here said we got some kids starving and not getting food at lunchtime at any school in Cayman, there's not one of us here that wouldn't sacrifice the $10 or $15 we got in our pocket to buy lunch for ourselves to ensure that 2 or 3 students get it. So you telling me that somebody who's in an elected position, who have the ability to appropriate funds to different entities, and I must say that the appropriation of funds in the physical budget, which I've read, and I'm going to tell you, it is a wide spectrum of things, and I applaud people who are in those industries. So to make that short, is that we need to carve out a compulsory block in that appropriation to ensure that under no circumstances that not one single child in this country should ever miss a meal, whether it be in school or at home. Come on, man.
All right. Well, let's pause, because I think that's the ethos and the crux of the matter, the passion that we have for our country that sometimes people misconstrue. All right, we're going to pause, take a break. We continue with our callers when we return. Please stay tuned for Talk Today.
This February at Beyond Basics Medical Day Spa, enjoy skin-sational savings on your favorite spa services. Buy up to 2 of any of the following spa services for just $99 each. Laser hair removal to get rid of unwanted hair. Dermaplaning to smooth and brighten skin. Hydrofacials to treat acne, pigmentation, and dehydrated skin. Or cellulite and fat reduction in those stubborn areas. That's up to 2 services at Beyond Basics for just $99 each. Offer valid until February 29th. And services must be used by April 30th. Call Beyond Basics Medical Day Spa at 925-SKIN or visit Beyond Basics Spa on Instagram and Facebook for details.
Your favorite family fun day is back. The 53rd Annual Agriculture Show at the Stacey Watler Agricultural Pavilion in Lower Valley. Theme, Agriculture for the Future. Ash Wednesday, February 26th. Family fun for everyone. Acrobatic show, cooking competitions, produce, plants, pony rides, petting zoo, rodeo, and so much more. Gates open at 7 a.m. with ample parking. General admission is only $10. Children ages 2 through 11, $5. And under 2 are free. Or buy your raffle ticket including entrance fee for a chance to win $20,000 and so much more. For more information, visit them on Facebook or 345agriculture@gmail.com. Put down your iPad and get back to your roots at the 53rd Annual Agricultural Show, February 26th in Lower Valley.
Did you know that ValueMed Pharmacy has a free online prescription service? Managing your health and medical requirements has never been easier with ValueMed. Simply visit value-medpharmacy.com. That's VALU-medpharmacy.com and click the Refill Prescriptions tab on our website. Fill in the information for new prescriptions or refills and choose your preferred pickup location. ValueMed on Walkers Road or Bodden Town. Then bring in your original prescription from your doctor when picking up. There's no need to stand in line and wait for your prescription. Save time and pick up prescriptions at your convenience by visiting value-medpharmacy.com. That's VALU-medpharmacy.com.
Do you think my kid is not into that? When it comes to marijuana and other drugs, well, think again. Being a teen in this country isn't easy. They face a lot of pressures and might overlook the values you taught them. Even the teen least expected can be tempted to try drugs. As a parent, you are the biggest influence in your kids' lives. So when you're talking to them, be clear and firm about the subject of drugs. Listen to them. They might be at a crossroad and need your help. Talk to your teens about drugs before someone else does. For more information, call 949-9000 or visit us at www.ndc.ky. This message is brought to you by the National Drug Council.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon. Welcome back to Talk Today. Thank you for joining us. Ms. Shirley Rolston, joined by Mr. Mario Rankin. And we're talking about the ruling a couple hours ago from Mr. Justice Tim Owen QC in the case for judicial review brought by CPR and the National Trust for Cayman Islands, sort of jointly. Was that how it was?
Brought by me.
Well,
CPR couldn't bring the...
Yeah. Thanks for correcting
Not that I'm trying to hog the spotlight or anything like that. It just, they could not be, it could not come as a group.
As
so
an
one
entity.
person just had to make the stand, and why not me?
Well, why isn't it that if it's legislation that we need to be able to have an entity? But anyway, that's another story that people more, highly paid will be able to venture at some other point. But we do have a caller online.
Awesome.
Thank you for listening, and equally thank you for sharing. Good afternoon and welcome. You're on Talk Today.
Yes, Mr. Ebanks, good afternoon to you and the political aspirants in the studios, guys. Thank you very much for all that you already has done for us.
I think you must be talking about me and Susan about the political aspirants. Oh, aspirants. As you say, aspirants. Sorry. I'm teasing you, Mom. I'm sorry. Good afternoon, Mom.
To you guys, please get political and aspire to a career in the field of politics in your own country. Don't be shamefaced about that. You've done more in your few short months than all around has done in 30-odd years. Okay? So get out there and do your thing. Don't be shamefaced. You can manage where you can't serve. They're serving, but you can't serve. They like to do that, though, to the young, to keep you all quiet. Yeah. But don't be quiet, please, not on my watch. I'm looking forward to hear about the declaration, and I'm looking forward to so many other things. Thank you guys very much, because not even to say for this or for that, but just for standing to show the rest of us that we can stand. Just the example of standing is a great thing.
Right.
Well, thank you for standing with us.
Oh, you don't worry about that singing sensation. I go on.
All right. Hey, thank you very much. Now, phone lines are open. I'm looking at a couple of other messages here, but we'll get to them at some point as we read them into it. Call and share your thoughts. Now, when we look at this, and I won't venture in, try not to even joke more about the political part of it, because this is societal, it's economic, but everything is political in a sense. With this particular ruling, and with a populace that I believe is starting to become more passionate, more engaged, hopefully more informed about what is transpiring, and maybe more responsible in our individual endeavors. Somebody has to do something, if not me, who, if not now, when. We hear that, but is that really something we believe? Michelle, from that perspective though, I would like to think that we are people who are courageous. If I think back to our history, you've demonstrated that, the others on both sides. Now, is there a call, Miss Susan? Well, good afternoon and welcome. Thanks for calling.
Good afternoon, Dwayne. How you doing? It's Eden Hurlston.
Hey, Eden, good afternoon to you. How are you today?
I'm doing fantastic now. Hi, Mario. Hi, Shirley.
Hi,
How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing great. I'm going to try not to cry or laugh too much while I'm on the phone with y'all, but I am doing a little bit of dancing just to make it clear. It is, you all have done a great, this is just a great day for Cayman, and thank you all for your hard work in getting us here. I wanted to say that I know that this is going to have a lot of far-reaching positive effects in our community, because there are a lot of different struggles going on, a lot of different levels right now to right some ships and get the people back involved in our destiny here in our country. And I think this is going to inspire so many people to take stands, and where stands need to be taken. I also think that this is going to have an important impact on the perception of Cayman as a modern democracy in the Caribbean region and internationally, to let people know that this is one small country where even when the people's voice was tried to be shut up, we took a hold and grabbed the microphone right out of their hand and started speaking our piece, and all came together to make it happen. So I'm really, really inspired and just eternally thankful for all the work that CPR and all the work that the Trust and every single person who has put in any way to this effort has done. I know we have a long road ahead of us, but this is a great day for Cayman, and thank you all. I had a couple of questions on as far as repercussions and positive effects, and how this might affect some other things that are kind of in swing right now. As far as you have the problem with the decision to remove Smith Barcadere from planning permission, not being gazetted, it seems like that could be have some kind of legal contention to it that could affect the outcome of that, and help us in keeping that place as close to natural as we can possibly keep it. We also have the Concerned Citizens group that are fighting for beach access for everybody across the island, in dealing with their not being able to get legal funding in regards to their case for beach access. And then we also have the human rights issue and marriage equality issue, which I look at as a family rights issue, because we have a Cayman family who's being oppressed and denied of their ability to live in peace and raise their child and enjoy the fruits of their labor in their own country. That was actually cited in the case for the referendum as having another constitutional standard which government doesn't have a framework for. Because I remember on the first day hearing your council talk about that, and these are all important issues that are happening, as well as others. We have Barkers, and we have many other things happening across the island. But as far as situations like this, what kind of precedents do you think that this decision sets, and how do you think it will affect some of these other cases that have legal aspects to them?
Well, personally, I think that Caymanians can now expect a much more mature political environment because of the ruling today, instead of more politics. I think Caymanians have the hope of a much more mature legislative environment.
Yeah,
that's my hope.
And also, what it also set a precedent for is now you'll see where there will be a higher level of involvement from the public when it comes to play things like beach accesses and public spaces. And our greatest fight is to maintain our right to the beach. and our right to have access to the beaches. You know, one of the biggest misconceptions is that we want to go down on the beach and own it. We just want to go there and occupy it for a short couple of hours and leave. But what this precedent sets is a level of inspiration for future generations in order to participate on this level, so that we can see more involvement in our democracy from our people, from across the board, young and old, middle-aged, all alike. And this is a super encouraging moment in our history, where we haven't only set a precedent, we've prevailed. We have penetrated the likes of sitting judges across the pond who understands the high level of integrity for a process that has never been done. So this precedent is exceptionally important to the process moving forward on how we interject as a public into whatever the government deem is in the best interest of the people without public consultation. So again, you know, we need to stay focused on all of those things, and we need to have laws that protect our beaches and the accesses to for eternity. There should be a piece of legislation that says that no one, under no circumstances, should ever be able to develop not even a square inch of places like Smith-Bacadere, Barcus, and that all of our beach accesses must be enshrined in the Constitution and in law, that no one should have impeded on them and we should have access. But again, that this is the first steps to a very long process, and I have a lot of confidence, like I did in this process, and we all have, and that's why we're sitting here today.
All right. Anything else, sir, you wish to share with us?
I want to just second Mario's talk about us. Let's focus on, you know, no more hungry children by the end of 2020 in Cayman. I believe is a very possible, achievable goal that everyone can agree on, and I believe that our sitting government, it's in their best interest, if they want to see any kind of success come May 2021, that they put aside all this foolish development greed stuff and trying to stamp out people's rights and their ability to participate in their own country's future, and focus on getting children fed. That's a great place to start. Just start on it, and let's have no more hungry children in Cayman by the end of 2020.
Agree.
I think it can be done, and I think that they should try to focus on that, and then we'll come up with the next task that needs to be focused on once all our kids' bellies are full and they're ready to play and learn and do the things that kids should be doing. So I'm 100% behind that idea, and I also want to second that other lady's opinion. If you guys want to run for politics, hey, we need good people in there, for sure. Thank you all once again, and y'all have a great day.
Thank you, and thank you for being a part of the journey.
With that, let's just pause quickly, take a quick break. When we come back, let's invite equally the participation as we welcome the good company of Mr. Johan Moxham. Stay tuned for Talk Today.
Wow, looks good. What is that?
Chicken chair.
What did you just say to me?
Chicken chair.
I am not a chicken.
Whoa! I said chicken share. It's from KFC. Bucket of 12 hot wings, 6 pieces of chicken, or 8 tenders. KFC chicken share. Just $12 each.
Oh.
Want some chicken, tenders, or hot wings?
You're sharing your chicken share with me?
The new chicken share from KFC. Just $12 each. And it's finger-licking good. Dine at KFC Baytown Plaza, KFC Shedden Road, or KFC at the Strand.
Mary Ann Radmacher once said, as we work to create light for others, we naturally light our own way.
Calling all CICSA members. The Cayman Islands Civil Service Association Annual General Meeting is Friday, February 21st at the GAB Downstairs Conference Room 1038, starting at 12:15 p.m. A light lunch will be provided.
Come out and vote for your 2020 Management Council. Hear the President give his annual report, ask your questions, share your ideas, and make suggestions. You can also email your questions in advance of the meeting to cicsa@gov.ky. There will also be a door prize raffle of Cayman Airways vouchers, and the first 35 persons to sign in at the meeting will get a free gift.
Members, please make every effort to attend this very important upcoming annual general meeting. Remember, it's Friday, February 21st at the GAB Downstairs Conference Room, room 1038, starting at 12:15 p.m. Hope to see you there.
At Seaboard Marine, customers often ask us questions about their shipments.
Hi, I'm thinking of buying a car from the States. Which port do you ship out of?
Hi, we ship out of Miami, Houston, and Brooklyn. Just let us know your port of choice and we can provide you with a quotation and answer any questions you may have on insuring and protecting your vehicle during its journey.
Shipping shore to shore, seaboard.
Headlines.
With the latest headlines.
Headlines.
One of Cayman's bright and shining young stars.
Local, regional, international.
Headlines.
Turning to international news. Updates on the hour between 7 a.m. and 6 p.m. on weekdays. All the news when you want it. Tune in to Radio Cayman for hourly headlines of the day's top stories.
Radio Cayman, your voice, your choice, your radio.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners' participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waging to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon. Welcome back to Talk Today. And if you're joining us, we have the excellent company, Miss Shirley Rolston, Mr. Mario Rankin, and now we're joined by Mr. Johan Moxham. We're talking about the ruling that was just handed down today by Mr. Justice Tim Owen QC in the judicial review brought by Ms. Rolston and the National Trust of the Cayman Islands. Well, Mr. Moxham, I appreciate you taking a few minutes to join us as well. Good afternoon to you, sir.
Afternoon, Sterling. Good afternoon to your listening audience. Just let me start off by saying, ladies and gentlemen, I don't know what the definition or the criteria is for a national hero, but if Shirley Ralston doesn't qualify, there's something wrong with that entire process, because what she has done in her individual capacity, and I'm proud to call her my friend, I'm proud to know her. Shirley has courage, principle, integrity, and a passion for this country and for doing the right things that I wish, and I'll just get it out the way now, if our elected officials demonstrated that same love and conviction and integrity and belief in doing the right things the way that Shirley does, this country would be in much better shape. Yes, CPR, she's a part of our movement, she's a part of our committee, proud to have her as a colleague, but to be the person to put your name down in history and say, hey, I'm prepared to take up the challenge because the organization can't, but I'm prepared to do so because I believe in the objective. I believe in fairness, equality. I believe in doing things the right way, especially when you have a Cayman's first people's-initiated referendum. Again, I don't say this, I'm not saying this morning or this afternoon, I've been saying this for months. If Shirley Ralston is not a national hero, we need to go back to the drawing board and figure out what a national hero looks like, sounds like, and acts like. And I would encourage all 19 members of the LA, take a page out of Shirley's book, do it the right way, represent the people, represent what is good and right about our country. Do it in the spirit of fairness and equality instead of political gain, because for all of the accusations levied against us at CPR, Shirley inspires somebody like me, and I lack in the inspiration department sometimes. Hey, let's just push through. We're doing this for the right reasons, and it's because we all love Cayman and we want the best for Cayman. The government fought from day one to embarrass, make sort of commentary and besmirch the character of everybody associated with this movement. But today, looking at that ruling and all the work that went into it, we were right from day one. Miss Shirley was right from day one. I am proud to say, if there's a leader of CPR, I am proud to say I will walk shoulder to shoulder with my version of a modern day national hero, Shirley Ralston, because whenever any of us had our moments where we dipped and we're like, you just have your days, you have your moments. Shirley never dropped that level of positive energy, that level of let's focus on why we're doing this, and it inspires you to push on and push through. And today the government is dealing with the consequences of their poor decision making because they demonstrated a lack of respect for the people, Not a lack of respect for Shirley, Johan, Mario, or CPR, but they demonstrated a lack of respect for the people, and we were forced to, Shirley in particular, to lead the charge and challenge them in the courts. But can you imagine how this could have gone had they shown more humility, more leadership, more willingness to open their ears and represent a large cross-section of the people? Maybe we wouldn't be having such an historic moment like today. But the narcissism...
Or an expensive one.
Oh, it's true. And the expense that goes along with that. But the narcissism and the fundamental lack of respect and unprofessionalism that has been demonstrated by the cabinet, by the Premier's office, by the Deputy Premier, where they were prepared to tell the world that we were all liars, jokers, political wannabes, just causing trouble, trying to destabilize the government. No such thing, ladies and gentlemen. It was a lie then. It's a lie now. We were doing this for the right reasons. And thankfully, the Grand Court, Justice Tim Owens, issued a ruling that demonstrated that for all of the reasons that we wrote those letters to them and that we had pre-action claim letters submitted, they were all found to be valid. So I say, Mr. Premier, Mr. Deputy Premier, and members of Cabinet, the next time you go and blackguard people and the next time you try to assassinate people's character, just recognize this is not Cayman 1985 anymore. People read, people are united, people understand what is right and what's wrong, and people will fight to ensure that they have their say in our Cayman Islands. And I'm so proud to be a part of this movement, and to say that I'm proud to be friends with Mario and Michelle and Melanie and Katrina and the thousands of other people that supported us, because
me in particular.
The reality is this. None of this happens without the brave citizens signing the petitions. They're the first people that I think are owed a debt of gratitude because they put us on the path. Yes, we had a vision. Yes, we had a mission, but the petition signers put us on the path. Then you had all of the volunteers. You had all of the people that offered support, whether it be with their time, energy, or resources. We had donors who supported the movement. You had civil servants who were scared to death about being seen to support this initiative. But they did. And you know why? They knew we were doing the right thing. Everybody except the government knew that they were doing the wrong thing. How imagine that. You have to take your government to court to prove that what they're doing is wrong. And now it's there in black and white. So hopefully the Premier, the Deputy Premier, and all the ministers of Cabinet, the Minister of Planning, because this situation, you will see something like this happen with the Smiths-Barcadair situation. Their refusal to listen to the people and the wishes of the people will lead to more challenges. And here's the thing, all of it could have been avoided had they shown respect for the people. So today's a great day for people power, and it is proof that you can succeed if you have a mission, if you have a first-class team, if Caymanians work together. That is so important. I've known Shirley, but now I know Shirley, and now I truly love Shirley. And whatever Shirley's involved in, I'll say it live on air. Shirley, call me. I'll be right there with you. I've said that to you in private. I say it to you in public. That's the sort of bond that CPR has created amongst hundreds and thousands of Caymanians. And I'm super proud, Shirley, on behalf of anybody that never gets a chance to tell you thank you. Yeah. You are a superstar. And I thank you for my children's children. Because today we struck a blow for what Cayman is about in 2020. And that represents unity and people power.
Was it the Trade Winds have a song, Where Are Your Heroes, West Indies?
She's sitting right next to me, bro.
And I asked that then in light of a comment Mr. Moxon that I relayed to Mr. Rankin and Ms. Ralston earlier. People sometimes need somebody to take the charge, as it were, to stand in the gap. Is it then that we as a people now see this as that watershed? Is this the seminal moment? We have a final break to take. It's not political, it's societal. It's not about economics, but it is costly. Sometimes doing is less than not doing. When we come back, any sort of closing thoughts, and then at 2 o'clock we do have an opportunity to speak on another subject relative to the agriculture show. But when we come back, we'll invite you to share with us again. All right, stay tuned for Talk Today.
This February at Beyond Basics Medical Day Spa, enjoy skin-sational savings on your favorite spa services. Buy up to 2 of any of the following spa services for just $99 each. Laser hair removal to get rid of unwanted hair. Dermaplaning to smooth and brighten skin. Hydrofacials to treat acne, pigmentation, and dehydrated skin. Or cellulite and fat reduction in those stubborn areas. That's up to 2 services at Beyond Basics for just $99 each. Offer valid until February 29th, and services must be used by April 30th. Call Beyond Basics Medical Day Spa at 925-SKIN or visit Beyond Basics Spa on Instagram and Facebook for details.
Rotary Club Central, in association with the Cayman Islands Health Services Authority, HSA, present Health Check 2020. Free health check, free mini medical consultation, diabetes, hypertension, and much, much more. Saturday, March 7, 10 a.m. through 2 p.m. Nurses, doctors, Rotarians in service to you. The Rotary Health Check 2020 at A.L. Thompson's, Foster's Airport and Countryside, Foster's Republics, and Kamana Bay. Costs you less. And Hurley's Supermarket. You may save your life. Rotary Central Health Check 2020. Your life, your health. Rotary, connecting the world.
Start getting your debt under control with a debt consolidation loan from Fidelity Bank. At Fidelity, your loan decision is quick with no runaround. Plus, with competitive interest rates and fees, we will help you reduce your monthly payments and get you back to living again. Don't let the burden of overwhelming debt tie you down this year. Call Fidelity today and let's make it happen with a Fidelity Bank debt consolidation loan. Fidelity, we're good for you.
King Sports Center takes pride in being more than just an ordinary gymnasium. For 14 years, their multi-purpose facility has been providing the community with a variety of sporting, recreational, and relaxation activities. King Sports Center has a bowling alley, lounge bar, multi-purpose rooms, powerhouse gym, rock climbing wall, bungee jumping, a 10,000 square foot rink, and so much more. For more information on the variety of services, call their friendly staff today at 946-5464 or email kings@candw.ky or visit www.kingsportscenter.com. King Sports Center, your one-stop shop for fitness, recreation, and relaxation.
Cayman Arts Festival and the Cayman Islands Public Library Service proudly present Music at the Library, featuring classical music in addition to poetry and readings from local poets and writers. 2020 performances include Glenn Inanga on piano, Antonio Alvarez on cello, and Joan Garcia on violin. Thursday, February 20th, 6 p.m. at the Public Library in Georgetown. Tickets will be available at the door, 20 CI for adults and 5 CI for students.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Good afternoon. Welcome back to Talk Today in the studio. Ms. Shirley Rolston, Mr. Mario Rankin, and Mr. Johan Moxham. And we're talking about a ruling from Mr. Justice Tim Owen, QC. Now, Mr. Moxham, as you wish, certainly appreciate what you're sharing. Please continue. Equally, Mr. Rankin and Ms. Rolston.
No, it'll be interesting to see what the government do next. Are they crazy enough to appeal and fight the people again? Because the one thing that they've consistently proven is they can spend money fighting the people when again, we obviously have too much money as a government. I understand the legal process. I understand, trusting the courts to do the right things. But Mr. Premier, Mr. Deputy Premier, at what point will this government and the cabinet members accept it's time to give up the ghosts? This project will die a death because we will do what is necessary. We will assess all legal options and do what is right because you know why? They don't respect the people. The government of this country do not respect the people, and we are compelled to continue these sort of initiatives in order to have our say because it's our Cayman. Cayman belongs to everybody, not just supporters of the PPM or UDP or the Unity Crew, whatever they call themselves. Cayman is ours, made up of a diverse group, first generation, multi-generational Caymanians, and matters of national importance and projects of this magnitude have to involve the participation and engagement of the widest cross-section of the country, because the government failed to make a business case as to the merits of this project. Now, I would love to be a fly on the wall seeing what they're doing. I wouldn't be surprised if the Premier calls for early elections, because that way, effectively, you can then snap people that aren't ready. You have your party together and they could think that that's the way to go. And at the end of the day, you got to understand, these guys make decisions for their political survival. They do things based on the politics because they can't get jobs doing anything else. That's a fact. They're political animals, and I think I understand them. But if they are prepared to proceed with this at any and all costs, the question that the public need to be asking is, why? Why are you so desperate to do so? Secondly, what more will it take for the government to understand you're dealing with a whole new Cayman? You're dealing with a whole new level of people that are truly united. They care about the environment. I care, and many care about the potential costs associated with this. If the government are putting the interest of Royal Caribbean and Carnival Cruise Lines before the interest of their people, this is not the government that we should be having represent us, because to this day, they still have not gone into a negotiation with Royal Caribbean and Carnival Cruise Lines that demands and ensures that the Caymanian water sports operators, tour bus operators and taxi drivers get a better deal. And if you have those companies at the forefront of this project claiming to be financing the entire thing, and you haven't managed to secure a better deal for your Caymanian business owners and employers and citizens, you are not working in the best interest of Caymanians. Period, point blank. So don't be surprised if they do something crafty like that, because desperate people do desperate things, and they're desperate to stay in power. You know, I understand Mr. Hughes be the new leader of the PPM as a party. It's the same dog puppy. No different. Nobody in cabinet stood up to fight for the people. Nobody in cabinet stood up to say, hey, maybe we should acknowledge and respond to one of those 8 or 9 letters that were written by CPR to the government. And the question that you need to ask is, what kind of representative and leadership do you have where they can ignore a group of regular citizens, Joe and Jane Ebankses, that are representing over 6,000 voters? We deserve a government that represents all of us, not just special interests. And Shirley isn't here because she's looking for political office. I'm not here because I'm looking for political office. I think I could do a better job than some of them that are elected right now, and make no bones of that. When you have the the Minister for Planning telling you at a meeting at Smith's Cove that he didn't know about the tender until he saw it in the press, when the tender is coming from the Ministry of Planning and his Deputy Chief Officer there. Ladies and gentlemen, that's just an embellishment and a poor lie. And that's what we have. We have people that we can't trust. And that's why Shirley and CPR exist. And that's why we went to court. And that's why Justice Owen ruled what he ruled, because they do things fast and loose, ad hoc, to benefit their agenda instead of what's in the best interest of the Cayman Islands.
I believe we have some callers online as we get sort of nearer to the 2 p.m. hour. Let's go to the phones though. Well, we had a caller online, and we'll see. Yep, she'll take the other one as it becomes available. All right. Johan Moxham, Mario Rankin, Shirley Rolston, our guest. Good afternoon, welcome, thanks for calling.
Good afternoon, Dwayne. Sorry to call you back for the second time.
Not a problem, ma'am, welcome back.
One of my friends just called me and asked me that they were so happy to hear the ruling, and they would like to know, they want us to trust that miracles still will happen, because the Premier said that it would take a small miracle for us to be able to stop it from going forward with their plan. And they want to know, and he also made a comment that if we should win the ruling, he would leave the government. They want to know if he's still ready to leave, or what is his decision. or he can stick on as a Caymanian, or he can walk off the ship now and leave us.
All right, thanks, Franklin.
Well, to her comment, and I think what she's referring to is where the premier made a video where he uttered the words, or the scenario that if this cruise birthing facility weren't in line to be built, and if this referendum had stopped it, that he would have to reconsider his position as premier of the country, because it would be an indictment on his political career. Now, granted, the miracle in which he spoke about has now been granted. So I would suggest, as she did, that maybe he should reconsider his position as leader of the Unity Party and the premier of the Cayman Islands, in his own words. And like Mr. Malcolm said, obviously, it's one of those things where we're now sitting at a crossroads. We've managed to have a ruling that express and echoes the concerns of CPR and all of what we've been saying for the last 18 months. In the absence of a response from any correspondence that we've sent to the Premier or the Cabinet Office, especially when we had the legal opinion handed down prior to the debate of the referendum bill, one would have thought that under a reasonable and transparent government, at least a conversation would have transpired with that group. And to this date, yet we've yet to see any level of compromise on the government side to even consider having a conversation with the group that represents a large block of the voting public. So again, this precedent is super important. Like Johan mentioned about the Smith-Bakker there, that's another example of poor governance. We had the head of the ministry who said onto what Mr. Hughes said, again, which was eye-opening for us, that our RFP had went out for the bidding process of Smith-Bakker redevelopment. However, the final drawing or design wasn't done. Now, it would be hard for any private entity to submit a bid for a process that a final design hadn't been done, that they would then award the preferred bidder and then discuss the variations of the project, which is absolutely wrong and cannot work, because people spend money to submit bids to any RFP, regardless of what that level is. So again, there are a lot of fundamental breakdowns in the processes on how we gauge and how we manage projects moving forward. This precedent has allowed us now to have that injection of conversation so that the public can have an opportunity to have a say in these particular projects. And I know that time is short, so Shirley, I think you should take the mic before we have to pack it up at 2.
Ladies and gentlemen, let me introduce you to our newest national hero, Miss Shirley Ralston.
Ding, 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 ding.
Ladies and gentlemen, at the end of the day, I am just me. I am just Shirley. You can call me a rascal. I appreciate Johan's, all of his kind words and whatever, but
every word.
At the end of the day, I'm just a member of a really wonderful and incredible team, and who has had the support of many, many, many Caymanians in public and behind the scenes. Some cannot make themselves known, but they've expressed to us in various ways the support. So to be honest with you, I believe if the ruling had gone the other way and we had a referendum tomorrow, we would get the same result. I do believe that the people will prevail when we have the referendum, whenever it is held. Someone asked me today, do we want the referendum as soon as possible? And that has never been our goal. From day one, we wanted a referendum that was fair and equitable for the Caymanians, a referendum that by that time they had got all the information they need to make a sound decision on the future of our country. And there was never, ever any rush to have that happen. We kindly said in the very beginning, if it happened in the next election, we would be okay with that, to save money and everything else. But government has gone their way and done it their way and wasted money, to have an early election, which did not happen. So all of that money was wasted, and we have to start over and do again. So it's really a sad time in our country where the people are fighting for their basic needs. We're fighting to feed children. We're fighting to save our beach accesses. We're fighting to preserve the few pristine beaches that we can relate to, that are a part of our culture, that are that we have a very deep love for. We're having to fight the government to keep these things when there's so many other issues at hand that they need to be dealing with, and leave the people alone with what they have. Give us our beach accesses, leave Smith Barkadir alone, leave Barker's Beach, and get on with the business of improving our education, fixing the dump, fixing our roads, feeding the hungry, getting our cost of living down, providing medical care, and even homes for our elderly that families are struggling to not just raise their children, but to take care of their elderly parents. We've got some serious issues in this country that we need to be working on, and not having to fight for the things that the people should have. When the people tell you they want something, the people are now awoke and they're going to get what they want. So stand together or we're going to fall together, my people. Register to vote, stay alert, stay awoke, and let's do this. We have to get our country back where we're at the steering wheel.
That's a very nice manifesto. I love it. I'm going to put it in print.
Okay, I'll give it to you.
Mr. Rankin, now be yourself. But listen, thank you all very much for joining us, from leaving the courtroom to coming into our studio, and for informing the public. And, I'm mindful that we'll be able to, at some point, have members of the government on as well to share a perspective. Thank you very much. Enjoy your afternoon. And to our listeners, after the headline news, hey, let's talk about food security and agriculture. The agriculture show coming up on Wednesday, so stay tuned for Talk Today.
Today's biggest news.
Radio K-Man.
It's only 2 species that we have, on the island.
Generations present.
Your voice, your choice.
For today's biggest news.
Access to information.
Local, regional, international, this is headlines from Radio K-Man's newsroom team. Today's biggest news.
The Chamber Training Center's Small Biz Bootcamp series will be hosting their second workshop tomorrow, February 20th, at the offices of the Chamber of Commerce in Governor Square. The series offers free courses that focus on equipping entrepreneurs with the knowledge they need to manage and grow their small or micro business in the Cayman Islands. Tomorrow's workshop will focus on preparing a business plan and assessing loans. Good afternoon, I'm Dion Anglin with your headlines and news elsewhere. The Duke and Duchess of Sussex will formally step down as senior royals from March 31st. A spokesperson for the couple has said they will no longer carry out duties on behalf of the Queen, but arrangements will be reviewed after 12 months. Earlier this year, Harry and Meghan announced they would be stepping back from royal duties and working to become financially independent. They will return to the UK for engagements at the end of this month. And U.S. rapper Pop Smoke has been killed after an apparent armed robbery. Los Angeles police told Radio 1 Newsbeat a man was shot at his home and later pronounced dead, although didn't confirm his identity. But his label, Republic Records, says it's devastated by the unexpected and tragic loss of Pop Smoke. Pop was 20 years old. That's a wrap of your headlines. I'm Dion Anglin.
Stay in touch with Radio Cayman for the latest in news and information.
Follow Radio Cayman on social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Download the Radio Cayman app or log on to our website, www.radiocayman.gov.ky.
Radio Cayman, your voice, your choice, your radio.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners' participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Good afternoon. Welcome back to Talk Today. Thank you for joining us. And in the studio, an opportunity now to talk about the upcoming agriculture show. We have the excellent opportunity to speak to both, Mr. Paul and Mr. Rudy. Gents, thanks very much. Mr. Paul, I was going to say Paul Ebanks, He said, no, I'm the other, prominent name Borden. But I wouldn't joke enough. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon, Dwayne.
Afternoon, sir.
Well, Mr. Miles, we can't, otherwise I mistake you, for Ebanks. So. No, but I want to say that to share how important it is for us as a people to look at agriculture, and not only from the perspective of national food security and the like, but to encourage more of our people to look at the science behind farming, to look at agriculture beyond, just cattle or that's Mr. Purvey running cows, that's Mr. Borden. It's these things, and having gents like yourselves as stalwarts, as examples, may cause more of us as parents to say to our children, hey, you're good in math and science. We want you to get into medicine, but have you looked at veterinary medicine as well as, food science? So, Mr. Borden, I always think of the conversations you share with us with your knowledge or your desire to learn more about artificial insemination. That intrigues me, man. I still remember that. Because it just shows you the resolve and the resilience in our people.
Dwayne, I was born in it, four generations, and I, at a very early age, realized how important it was. It was a way of survival when I was a boy, and more so now than ever before. We're depending too much on the outside world. We don't know what we're eating, but we know we're getting a lot of cancer, and we're getting a lot of this and a lot of that. And I am convinced that we do not know what we're eating. The tag shows what they're compelled to put on it. That's probably half the story.
Yeah.
With things I've seen versus when I was a boy.
Something that I was thinking of, and I'll ask you to guide the discussion, but in thinking of preparing for it, I looked at two things. From what you've shared publicly, both of you, the idea of food security, the idea of health of the people, the health of the nation in terms of what we're feeding, but equally the notion of encouraging. My perception of you two gentlemen, not just avid farmers, if that's the right word to use, but business people. You're employed or you employ others and you're responsible. Right. So this calling, this vocation is probably more of, I don't know how you say that, a calling than it is a livelihood initially, right? Because Mr. Miles, I think of you specifically. You have another job.
I do. But everyone has to eat. And I am, call me biased if you want to call me that, but I have a feeling that what we grow here, what we produce here, is not easily matched anywhere else. And from the security standpoint, knowing what goes into our products, our local products, is a comforting feeling. Mr. Bodden just spoke about not knowing all the variables. We see the increase in cancers and all these other things. How do we know what is going into those products before they get to us? We have a pretty good idea what is going in locally, but what comes from overseas, and let's not knock it. We still need to import things, but I still think that we're going quite a ways to becoming self-sufficient. And we were, in fact, much more self-sufficient years ago in terms of our agricultural productions, but population growth and everything else. But I think the agriculture society and the agricultural sector on the whole is seeking to maintain a certain level of stability so that you can truly enjoy the freshest of the freshest that you can get.
If I then could ask, perhaps first with you, Mr. Paul, we hear it said, it sounds like a good tagline, but it actually makes no sense. Eat what you grow and grow what you eat. We look back to our parents, for some of us, it's our grandparents, for some of us it's our great-grandparents, and whether we call it a backyard garden, whether we call it the ground, whether we say, but that was out of necessity. They were, sort of growing because they didn't have an option. But then we think of what they did then, and we look at what we're doing now, we almost come full circle because of health reasons and the like. How do we get then to a point as a nation that we start to appreciate? One of our brothers talked about food security long before I even appreciated our word 2+ decades ago. We're not even using that sufficient, I don't think, or are we?
Doing the department and government and the farming community need to work closer together. There's a gap between us. They don't know what we're doing in many cases. We don't know what they're doing. And that cannot bear proper fruit, proper progress with that sort of thing. It looks to me now like they're trying to do more about it, which I'm happy to see, because I have poured millions and millions of dollars into mine just in the last 8 years. In fact, 2017, I put over $1 million in my farm, and I just simply can't afford it anymore. I don't want to give it up. It's a necessity. It's a must. We have to eat, like Rudy said, but we got to get more assistance and work closer together than we are.
Mr. Bond?
Yeah, I agree with Mr. Bodden, definitely. And from the farming community perspective, we have a responsibility to ensure that we are doing our part as well. We speak of the department, we speak of the ministry, and we speak of the farming community. We, as Mr. Bodden mentioned, have to be working close together. Farmers have to take a responsibility to ensure that they're keeping their statistics, they're knowing what's happening, they're communicating to various persons what's available. The supermarkets are quite willing to take the products. What they need is some sort of schedule. If I've planted off 5 acres of tomatoes and I don't tell anyone, other than fine, the department may know that it's coming, but if I'm not keeping them abreast of it, and then when it's all ready to reap, I go and say, well, I can't get sale for it. If the supermarket hasn't been made aware of it, how then do we expect them to cater for their customers as well if we're not providing them with information? So there's quite a bit of information that is needed all around.
Agribusiness, the business side of agriculture. So you decided as a farmer, I'm going to get into tomatoes. Just to use your example.
Right.
Understand how they grow, where they grow, when they grow, and all that stuff, and you can understand your harvest. Then you got your market. And just like maybe you, in economics, talk about making widgets. So you're making your widgets, right? You know when your widget is going to come off the assembly line, and you can deliver it, you got your market. Right. We need to get that business side down so that you go to your market.
Yes.
And they say, listen, next week for the next X weeks, I don't know how tomatoes grow and how long they take, which is an indication that we as a people don't really know a lot about our agriculture.
Yep.
They know that they have this supply of tomatoes.
Right.
But if they don't know, then all of a sudden they got 5,000 pounds of tomatoes that all spoil, and tomorrow there's none.
And then we're blaming someone else for it.
Okay.
But yeah, we need to communicate a bit more.
Like Rudy is saying, we have a role to play, and it's not going to work the way it's been done in the past, in a haphazard way. They don't know what's coming. We don't have any problem with the supermarkets and the public supporting agriculture.
That's true.
It's not a problem.
So can I ask that, and again guide me, because I'll be honest with you, I've seen people use a tomato, pick a tomato from their little tree in the back. They just throw down the seeds or whatever it is and bite the tomato like you would, an apple sometimes. Or cut the tomato and it looks like it's thick and it's not runny. I mean, this is a tomato. And I've seen other stuff. Now, from that perspective, when we look at the agriculture, the notion that we all believe is healthier, it's safer, it's this, it's that. But what is the problem with respect to us as a people? Is it that we're blaming everybody? Is it that the people who are supposed to be working together aren't complementing each other? They're more undercutting? I mean, I'm not trying to be rude, but is there an issue that we've identified, or is it that we haven't identified the issue?
I think we've identified that issue. There are constant efforts. I want to get mine to market first, or stuff like that. But we do need to work together a lot better, because there's no single farmer on this island that can supply whatever they're involved in. They cannot supply the entire market. The entire market cannot be filled by that one individual. So if we're working together, the three of us are doing farming together. If we're communicating with each other instead of trying to undercut each other, we would be able to then approach the supermarkets, approach the public and say, listen, this is what we have coming available. It may sway minds in terms of saying, well, no, I don't need to buy that this week because I heard that we're going to have tomatoes coming up next week. And listen, there's no one on this island, and I without any fear of being corrected, who can tell me you can find a better tasting tomato that can be brought in than what we can grow here. Absolutely. I place that challenge to anyone. But the quality is there. We just need to be working a lot better together.
And I appreciate the candidness, the sincerity, the passion. I mean, I won't ask Mr. Miles or anybody to speak, but since Mr. Borden has always mentioned it, that personal investment, time and money, commitment to see if this thing can work, because it may inspire the next generation of farmer. But let me then just ask one final question, and we can get into Wayne's invitation to come out it inspires me every time to see, wow, we actually can grow this here.
Yep.
You know, not just on a one-off thing. Words like collusion versus cooperative, right? Are we able to make sure that farmers are cooperating sufficiently, they're sufficiently competitive without undercutting, but to ensure that it doesn't come to a point where it becomes a collective and a cooperative as opposed to some sort of cartel? Now, those are not light words, and I'm not trying to be offensive in them, but I would love very much to be able to know that I can get a healthy, reliable source of that particular thing when it's in season, as opposed to, So is that something that we want to mull over and talk about after the break, or should I just leave that alone and say, boy, leave that enough alone? Mr. Miles?
I'm happy to talk about it. We can talk about it now or after the break. We certainly can.
Susan's the boss. So we have to take that break, Susan? All right, she gives you time to collect your thoughts and say, boy, you relax. All right, so we can talk about that briefly. We'll talk about the invitation. Monday and Tuesday for our listeners, we also have scheduled discussions on the Agriculture Show. Wednesday is Ash Wednesday. The invitation is to go out to the agriculture grounds. But farming is important. I'm glad that for you guys who farm, because I can enjoy, your labor much easier. Stay tuned for Talk Today.
Get ready, gamers, for 6 weeks of non-stop competitive action. The Cayman Islands Esports Association is proud to announce the first ever FIFA E-League. Starting February 1st. Compete for the gold on FIFA 20 for the PS4 every Saturday from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. at the Bodden Town Civic Center. Sign up today at CaymanEsports.org. Competitor fee is just $75 and includes your own jersey and swag bag. Spectators are free, so come out and enjoy the world of esports. Proudly sponsored by Gamers Bay, NetGeeks Media, CUC, Kimpton Seafire, and the Cayman Islands Youth Services Unit.
The FIFA E-League is also sponsored by Radio Cayman.
Your favorite Cayman Family Fun Day is almost here. The 53rd Annual Agricultural Show taking place at the Stacey Water Agricultural Pavilion in Lower Valley. It's going down Ash Wednesday, February 26th. $20,000 up for grabs and so much fun for everyone. February 26th. If you need more information, visit them on Facebook or email 345agriculture@gmail.com.
Radio Cayman, maintaining the innovation.
On a daily basis, making it easy to connect with you, our listeners. Add us to WhatsApp today, 925-3261. That's 925-3261.
Radio Cayman.
Send a text or voice note.
Can I send a request, please?
You don't really have to ask us. Just send a request.
This is a shout out to my ex.
Radio Cayman, the voice of the Cayman Islands.
Radio Cayman, maintaining the innovation.
Your Radio Cayman 6 p.m. news, Monday through Friday, is brought to you by Logic. Your life connected.
Talk today.
But I do have some questions.
Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon. Welcome back. Thanks for joining us. And in the studio, Mr. Paul Borden, Mr. Rudolph Miles joins us. And gents, thanks not just for taking time out of your day to share with us, but hopefully, and not just for others, but for people like myself who may be a little bit more respectful and mindful of not just the sacrifice, not just the hard work and the labor, but the significant importance of farming, of doing this thing that feeds the nation. Now, I thought it was my saying, but if it isn't, someone to correct me. We hear about the hand that rocks the cradle, rules the world. I always say, the hand that tills the soil, feeds the nation. It is not an impossible task, but sometimes it's a thankless task. We see the farmer getting up real early, like the baker. Those of us who sleep in a little bit late, we may not subscribe to the notion, the early bird gets the worm. We may say the late worm misses the bird. It's perspective, right? But thank you for doing that. I asked the question earlier, though, and it wasn't, again, to offend anybody. It wasn't. But, Mr. Miles, you were going to weigh in and venture.
Yeah.
Save me, as it were.
Part of that perception of the undercutting and the challenges that farmers face is I think a bit of inadequate planning. Because again, using the scenario, say a farmer who plants off of whatever the crop is. We were using tomatoes as an example.
Yes,
if they have failed to do sufficient planning and preparation, notifying their market of what's happening, suddenly they find themselves with an abundance of the product, and they now need to ensure that it doesn't waste. So you may find that they're willing to do the equivalent of dumping it. Basically, they'll tell the supermarket, listen, take it and whatever you can sell it for, whatever. That is just indicative of poor planning. If there was some willingness to share information, what do you have growing, when is it due, so that each farmer then feeds that information back to a central source. And whether that's the Department of Agriculture, whether it's the Agricultural Society or the Farmers Market, the Ministry or wherever, once we can get that information going, it allows people to then gauge, well, does it make sense for me to be planting this now? Because based on what information is available, we're going to have an abundance of it on the market. So maybe I should divert into something else. I think a lot of the knee-jerk reaction is because of inadequate planning on behalf on the part of the farmer themselves.
I guess then too, when you think about it, it's not a controlled environment. You can't predict what the weather is going to be like. Even if you have an enclosed space, there's a lot of things that go into it, variables we talk about. But if it's tomatoes, now I don't know much about tomatoes, but there are a lot of varieties. So maybe with planning, we can have this farmer or this farm producing 1 or 2 or 20 varieties, and then another one maybe is understanding when they bear and stuff. But then, Mr. Warden, from that perspective, if we as a community say don't attend an agriculture show to be able to see what is possible, to be able to see what is available, then maybe we don't appreciate the significant investment, not just money, not just time, but a national commitment. So coming up Wednesday, it's a good way to be mindful of the process, but be also informed of what is possible.
You're correct, Dwayne. I plan on bringing a couple of my cows. I have some of the Japanese breed that produces one of the most expensive beefs in the world. I started it over 10 years ago, I think it is around 10 years ago, by importing the semen and using artificial insemination versus trying to bring in the animals, the cost, the chances of bringing in diseases and stuff into your herd. You got to be so careful. You got to look at every angle possible. And I'm making some progress with them. I always believed in hanging my bar very high.
But this is something that I commend farmers, but specifically to you, Mr. Myers with the poultry, you with the cattle, Mr. Boyd, the investment, the sort of passion. You go, you check it out, and I talk about artificial insemination because Mr. Boyd, you come on, you say, listen, I'm not a scientist, I'm not a medical practitioner. I read, I learn, I travel, and it's not unlike that avid enthusiast who may be into fishing or into something else, and you spend time learning about it. So we can take a page. Now, we do have a caller online as we continue our discussion. Let's join our callers.
Sure.
Hey, good afternoon and welcome. Thanks for joining us.
On to you and your panel.
Good afternoon,
I would like to know if it has ever been considered to have the agricultural show at another month in the year.
Okay. So why is it when it is, and would we change it?
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Well, as long as I know, it's always been in February. Okay, it's been for some years.
Ash Wednesday. That varies.
Well, sorry, February. Yeah. An Ash Wednesday with a February Ash Wednesday. So why that day?
I would think it started. My father was one to start founding members because Ash Wednesday is a holiday. Back then, you just didn't make a holiday to accommodate anything beside the Queen's birthday and stuff like that.
My birthday's coming up, and we could do it.
Yeah.
That is so okay.
So that lady has a point, but I don't know. I'm not against any change, especially if it can make a lot of difference. Unfortunately, some of the crops that maybe it would be very, I wouldn't say difficult, but regardless of where you change it to, it's going to be an advantage and disadvantage.
Okay. So I guess to the caller's
to
question,
certain things.
If I would ask, is there a better time of year, given all of the different things, the crops, the cattle, and all the logistics? Not necessarily asking an answer, no. Not even say it hasn't been asked before, but to have it, is November or September or July? Just as a question. Mr. Miles?
Consideration has been given over the years to having additional shows, not just a single show. The Ash Wednesday show, as Mr. Bodden just explained, has been a tradition. It's been decades, and simply because Ash Wednesday, people just knew that is what was going to take place, whether it was where it is now, or whether it was at what was then John Gray or the cricket pitch or whatever. But in terms of the availability of fruits, there will be, or products, there will be the opportunity, as Mr. Bodden again said, pros and cons. So consideration has been given to doing it at different points during the year. And I also need to add here that the show takes place, there's a Cayman Brack show and a Little Cayman show as well. And those take place after the show in Grand Cayman. But it is still being explored, to the best of my knowledge. There are opportunities that can be made by having it later in the year or different times during the year. So to directly answer the caller's question, yes, consideration has been given to it, but it just simply works out that that Ash Wednesday, it's been steadfast and that is being supported year after year. But I'm sure there are ways that we can consider changes, especially with some of the new things that's happening. You have the upcoming, now we're going to be doing the 4-H Club, which is getting youngsters more involved in it. They're going to want to be able to showcase what they're doing. So that gives an opportunity then to have another show, maybe where we focus on the things that develop as a result of the interest from the younger community. And we do need to encourage younger persons to get involved in farming. There are the backbreaking effort that farming was years ago doesn't have to be. There are means of working smarter rather than harder. And I think a lot of farmers are employing that. Mr. Bodden spoke about AI. Instead of having to bring the entire animal, import the animal and possible diseases, you import the semen, and you, through the breeding process, you get a breed that is viable. And I'm sure he's had tremendous success. There are others involved with cattle who are having significant success, others with goats and poultry and various other things. That I think there are opportunities, significant opportunities for us to see what is available, come out to the show, see what's available, and eat local as much as possible.
And as you were sharing, Mr. Bodden, we look at what we're bringing in and may trust the labeling, we may question it. On the flip side, if we are, let's just stick with sort of fruit and vegetables and the like, but even our cattle, are we also able to ensure that what we're feeding the animals that become food, or that the things we're putting into the soil to help to nourish the soil, the fertilizers and the other things, that they equally as healthy as, I don't want to use the word organic because that's been so bantered about, so that when we now put this to market as best as possible, that our parents and grandparents and great-grandparents had, we knew that came from the ground, and that was, well, we tasted the dirt. I mean, that was healthy as healthy can be. Now, we're not so sure.
Yeah, what I have done, I have brought in some grass from South America. It's 16% protein, and we have to harvest it. You can't graze it. And then we mulch it. And a few years ago, one of the butchers at the supermarkets called me and asked me what changes I made, and I told him it was just the grass. He said the last 4 animals were the same, and some of them were not related to each other. So it really confirmed how I felt when I started it. The genetics of an animal, there's feed, the temperament, the size, pasture, lot, feedlot, whatever. All these things make a difference. A good steak versus a poor one like I grew up eating.
Well, I'm always encouraged by not just the passion and enthusiasm, but the encouragement that both you exhibit, and many of the farmers, and encouraging others to consider this as not just as careers and getting into it from the academic perspective, but how sustainable it can be. Now, where do we go from here as a people? Maybe, for some of us, it's attended our culture show for the first time, or for the first time in a long time, or going with a renewed perspective to actually see, not just get there early to get the plants and the fresh pick, as it were, but how is this thing related to our, I'll be careful how I say it, but our security, and without people becoming worrisome. I don't know, Mr. Lance?
I think people need to come out and see exactly what's happening at the show. Come out, see what's there, see the availability that's there. As far as what we're able to provide from a security standpoint, if we have an embargo placed on, let's say, shipping traffic in the corridor that we exist, that could impact our ability to get foods. If we have a major issue, something damages the port to the point where we can't get our boats, our ships docking, so the containers become a challenge, or an issue at the airport where we can't have flights come in, what then do we do? So all those things do need to be considered, and I think the opportunity for persons to look at what's available. What can we grow in Cayman? There quite a bit of stuff can be grown here that we're not now growing. There are different methodologies being employed, whether it's greenhouses or whether it's hydroponics or various other methodologies. And we need to look at all of those possibilities, and coming out to the show gives you an opportunity to see those. Years ago, we had the aquaculture environment, which, for example, tilapia. There's a tremendous market here for the local tilapia. But there are other opportunities that exist as well. And I think we can explore all of those. Come out, see what's happening at the show, and hopefully it'll kindle an interest from persons attending.
Appreciate it. Any sort of closing thoughts today, Mr. Warden?
Just one last thing to support what the lady was inquiring about that Rudy answered. On Ash Wednesday, the schools are out at the time, so the children are free to come with the parents. So that's another plus. What do we do?
Yeah. Well, you know what? It could be like that old joke that we would hear. The woman asks, her grandmother why she cuts off the end of the ham hock, only to determine that it was to fit the pan. Yeah. Maybe we do it and not know. Maybe we do it as a justifiable reason. Maybe we improve upon it. But we need to do it, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, the 53rd, I think it is.
53rd annual show.
Oh, that's only 3 years older than me. That's good. Gents, thank you very much.
Thank you indeed.
Just for the afternoon.
You're welcome. Thanks for having us.
And continue. May God continue to guide your hands, give you the convictions and the passion, the commitment to persevere.
I hope a lot of people come out. I'll be there to answer any question I can pertaining to my livestock.
Yes, sir. All right, looking forward to it, man. Monday and Tuesday for our listeners, we get a chance to talk more about our culture show.
Yeah.
I like to eat. I like to have good food to eat. So somebody has to grow it. Thankfully, somebody is.
We are.
All right. I'm going to pause, call it the day for today. I can't believe it's Wednesday. Well, my son says, today's been the longest the year has been so far. Ah, boy. Well, come back tomorrow for Talk Today right after midday using midday meditations. And as we look through the week, good things happening ahead. So until then, be blessed.
Shaken yet standing firm. This is Radio Cayman in the Cayman Islands.